welcome to the first Data Science Incubator Meetup. This is simply two things. One thing is a workshop that we plan for the 9th and 10th of March next year, 2020. And it is also a weekly series of meetups like the one we are doing today. So to get access to the contents of these and the following meetups, you can go to the ds-incubator repository. This is in github.com 2degrees-investing, and then the repository ds-incubator. So here you will have the issues tab will have the different meetups that as we continue doing them. So the first issue is then the meetup of today, and we are going to be talking about how to set up GitHub, RStudio, and Git. This is a lot of ground to cover, so of course I'm not going to be very detailed, and also because most of you have already done it. So the goal instead is to just ensure that the setup is correct. So I am going to share this resource here that points to a book. It's called Happy Git with R. And this chapter called Workshops has a list of resources for what they use as a pre-workshop setup. By they, I mean the authors of this book, who, apart from being the writers of this book, they are teachers of workshops. And when you go to one of these workshops, then this is the kind of thing that you do before you go to the workshop. So they have this very nicely put list of instructions about how to set up Git, GitHub, R, and RStudio. So this is the extensive list, but I'm going to be only covering a few things and skipping others, and also making some kind of overview comments about some of them. So the first one is how to register a free GitHub account. Well, in addition to the links that I shared here, there is also in this comment a link to notes. If you click there, you will go to the notes that I created for the workshop today. So the first section is just for me, only for Mauro. It's just to remember what I should do before I meet you. So I encourage you to start actually here in register a free GitHub account, which if you pay attention, then that maps exactly to this first link here. So if you do go to the link, you will have a lot of information that would guide you to do these different steps on your own. But today I'm going to just show the main things. So about how to register a GitHub account, well, that's fairly straightforward, but there is a couple of things that it is important to kind of keep in mind. First, your username, ideally, maybe it's not like that right now, but ideally would contain your name, your real name. And that's because we may want to kind of find your username to mention you on GitHub, for example, to give you credit for something, to say thank you for doing this, or to assign you a task on a GitHub issue or pull request. So people want to find you on GitHub. If your username is something that no one has a clue about, then it's going to be really hard to communicate with you or to remember. Especially as the organization grows, it's going to be really difficult to remember people's usernames. So if you didn't do that, and you're also it is important that your username is timeless, ideally. And why? Well, because you may change from one organization to the other in the future. You may change employers, and you would like to still accumulate credit for your work under the same GitHub account. If your username does not contain your name and you are not willing to change it, then at least it is very strongly recommended that you would add your name to your profile. So simply go to github.com, settings, profile, and under name, add your real name. That way, when people go to the 2 Degrees organization and they start typing your name and their members, people will remember your name and maybe not your username. But by typing your name, that will be immediately associated with your username, and then we can use that to mention you. So that covers the first link here, and now we are going to move on to the second and third link, which are about updating RStudio, Git, and in general, about why you would want to keep software up to date. That's the topic that I think everyone I have met at 2degrees are already kind of convinced that it is a good idea to keep software up to date. But if you or someone else needs like a nicely put argument, an explanation about why that might be a good idea, then these three links A, B, and C give you very good a very good backup for that. In particular, I like this general idea that there is a lot of things in life, including updating software, that are painful. We acknowledge that they are painful, but the pain increases exponentially if the time between actions increases. This is true for updating software as it is for example, creating Git commits. The longer you wait before you do, another commit or before you upgrade your software, the disproportionately higher pain you will experience. So if you want to keep your pain levels to a minimum, the best thing you can do is just to move to the left on this curve. Just do things often. This is not an idea of myself, it is an idea of Martin Fowler, and this link points you to an article where he explains this very eloquently. The third link I would like to discuss, or actually fourth in this list, is how to introduce yourself to Git. This is the first time I'm going to be showing something live. Basically, the first time you install Git will not know what is, say, your username on GitHub, or your email on GitHub, or your username for associating your actions to your Git commits to a person. So you have to tell Git these two things. You have to tell Git to store in the configuration file, not in a global configuration file, to store your user email and your username. So we're going to do that now. How we do that? We are going to pop up a bash shell. So if you install Git on Windows, and I'm focusing on Windows because Windows users are the ones that experience the most pain, unfortunately. The Mac terminal is a little nicer to the users than it is Windows, the different flavors of Windows terminals. So I'm going to focus on Windows because of that, and also because a lot of our 2degrees people use Windows computers. So if you install Git in Windows, you will also have what's called a Git bash. So if I press the Windows key and type Git bash, the first thing that appears there is the one you want. So this Git bash, if I type git config global and list, so I'm asking the list of global configurations that Git has. If this is a new configuration, you may not see anything, but if you have already some configurations, it might look something like this. So you have to give it at least your email and username. And I also found that these three additional configurations are very useful. This one, what it does is it helps you push commits to GitHub from any branch in a very easy way. This one, what it does is it changes the default text editor that you would otherwise be prompted to use when you create, for example, a commit message or something. I personally use an editor that is called Nano. But if this is the first time you are doing this on the terminal, I recommend you to start with simply the Notepad. And then this last one, what it does is simply asks Git to remember your username and password, your GitHub username and password, the first time that you give it. And then from then onwards, we will not have to give it again. So that really simplifies your workflow. So if you wanted to do this yourself, to create these configurations yourself, one easy way to do it could be to come here to the file that I share with you, copy this text, right, and simply change your email here and your name here, and then copy that text and give it to the terminal. Unfortunately, if you press Ctrl-V, that won't paste, in many cases, that won't paste the text, that won't behave as you want. Instead, you will have to press Shift-Inst. That's painful, but that's what it is. I'm sorry. So by doing so, each line becomes a command, and you will have kind of set the Git configurations that are at the minimum Git configurations that will make your life easier. So that's all I wanted to cover about how to introduce yourself to Git and a few other things. And now let's move on to this other link. So the following resource is how to prove that your local Git and can talk to GitHub. And I'm going to skip that one because if things go well, if the configuration is going well, then this should be not necessary. Although I do expect that some of you will experience trouble. And that's fine. It's just I would like to kind of expose what those problems are and open a discussion with you on GitHub issues on the ds-incubator repository. So let's skip this for now, also because we don't have a lot of time in these meetups. We are also going to skip this other section, the one on cache, creating a cache for your username and password, because we already did it. Remember I told you that this configuration here, Global Credential Helper Manager, that one, what it's doing is basically covering what's in this link. So now let's actually do this the content of this previous last header, where we are going to prove the same connection. So we're going to prove that RStudio and Git together can talk to GitHub. Basically, you connect Git to GitHub via RStudio. So this is what we are going to do right now. So the first thing we want to do is to go to github.com. Let me close these other windows because they are a little distracting. Make sure that you are logged in as the person you think you are. In this case, Mauro Lepore is my account. That's correct. I'm going to hit the plus here to create a new repository. And here, let's do something like ABC, like a dummy repo, toy repo. Public is okay. Click here to create a README, and now hit on Create Repository. GitHub is going to take a little while to do this, and here we are. The name of the repository and the description have been automatically added by GitHub to the README file. So the first thing we need to do is to go to this green button here and copy this link. Make sure that here it says clone with HTTPS. This is what we want to use the credential helper that we set on Git. So now we go to any session of RStudio. I'm going to open RStudio by pressing the Windows key and typing RS. Here I see already RStudio, so I hit enter. That will open RStudio somewhere, probably in the last repo I was using, in the last project I was using before, or in a no project, which is what's happening right now. So now we go to that icon here on the top right and click on New Project. Now we choose this one here, the last one where it says version control and Git. Now we paste the link that we copied from GitHub, the one that has the HTTPS. Automatically, you can see how the name of the repository has been populated, and you choose a location where you want this repository to live. I'm happy with that, so I click directly Create Project. Now the repo is being cloned from GitHub, is kind of coming down to my computer, and here at the top right, I can now see the name of the repository. So that's fine. So what I want to prove now is that I can push commits from my local computer to Git, and for that, I'm going to click here on readme.md. What we see is a file that was automatically created from GitHub with the same information. I'm going to tidy it up a little bit and add a new line, something like new line from local computer. And now save the file, go to the Git pane, select all the files with Control A, for example, hit only one box and all of them will be automatically populated. And now hit commit. Now we have the opportunity, but also it is compulsory to write a commit message, something like first commit from RStudio, hit commit, and now close this window and push. By pushing this commit to GitHub, we are now challenged, because this is the first time that we do so, we are challenged to enter my username and password. So my username is Modolepore, and my password. So when I provide my username and password, they are going to be stored in my computer by a program, by a manager. So I expect not to be challenged for my username and password again. So now I'm ready to go to our GitHub to refresh this page and confirm that the commit that I did has actually been pushed. So pay attention to this line here. Remember, this is the file before it was incorporated my commit. And now when I refresh, I expect a new line to appear here at the bottom. And here it is. Right? So that's fine. So the thing I want to do that's working, I want to go back again to RStudio, do another commit. So let's add a new line and yet another one, another line from the local computer, save this file, commit it with another commit message, second commit from local computer, hit commit, and push. When I hit push, I now expect not to be challenged for my username and password because I used that configuration. Remember, I was telling it to remember my username and password, to use the credential helper manager. So I hit push and see what happens. The push has succeeded. I was not challenged, so that's working fine. That means that the HTTPS protocol is working as expected. And I can now go to GitHub, refresh again, and I expect the third line to appear here. Let's refresh, and here it is. So that's almost the end. The list of resources that I shared includes this one extra link, which invites you to reflect about the idea of using a Git client. A Git client is something like, for example, GitHub Desktop, which you might use, but I don't use a Git client, but I heard not very good reviews about the GitHub Desktop in particular. And instead, I heard, actually, it's written here in this very same book. I heard very good reviews about the Git Kraken program. So that's another Git client that you might want to consider. You don't have to use a Git client. You can if you want. None of the two approaches, using or not using, is nothing will make anything kind of. It won't make you better or worse to do one or the other thing. It's just kind of totally up to you and whatever you feel more comfortable every day using. So with that, I thank you very much. That's the end of the materials, and I'm going to upload this recording so that it is available, linked to the same issue. So soon you will see another link here saying recording. Thank you very much.